Chris Lotz with Pat Lotz Real Estate Group, coming back with you another podcast, Beyond the Keys, a Pat Lotz podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe below. We're trying to grow this channel, bring as much information to you as possible so you can make informed, educated, good decisions. And a great topic today is how to help clients overcome buyer's remorse. And I think over the past 2-3 years, we've been very successful on not seeing buyer's remorse. I think some of the data shows that other agents are dealing with buyer's remorse, and that's the biggest takeaway. And this is good for agents. This is good for buyers and sellers to really understand how you're making decisions, how to process these decisions, and then move forward. So again, past few years, what are we seeing for buyer's remorse past few years?
Well,
or your past 23 years?
Past 23 years, I would have to say that we're seeing more. I've seen more of it since 2019 to actually this last mid-summer, and reason being is because of the shortage of inventory and the high demand for buyers wanting to purchase. We're getting into bidding wars. We're getting into, giving a seller everything that they want, and then there's no extra room to negotiate. So they're overbidding. They're dealing with any type of repair. The property is typically as is, unless there's a major elephant or a financial that is unforeseen to anybody, and the seller's not even aware of that. And that might be mold in the attic, that might be arsenic, radon, rodents in the attic, a rusted heat exchanger, that kind of thing.
And I think that those, when we submit offers, and one thing we will say is over the past 3 years, we haven't waived inspection once. Sometimes we've said we're going to focus on health and safety for our inspections, which I think is kind of the best of both worlds. And you really see the true colors of sellers sometimes. Is what do you think it comes down to when they want waived inspections, when that's the highest thing that they're leveraging on along with price? I think it comes down to kind of greed. You should know the quality of your home or the well-being of your home, but at the end of the day, if you're passing down a home with those problems, that's a bit of a concern to me, I guess, in terms of like integrity and humanity.
Well, it's liability.
Liability.
Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't sleep at night giving my house away, having mold in the attic, arsenic in the water, and radon in the basement if those things actually even came up.
Well, and the seller might not be aware of that. So what happens is the buyer will buy the house and find that out, and depending on the cause, you could be spending a lot of money, and again, it's sort of like the seller goes, well, you waive the inspection, and then it's a trust factor. Did they disclose things properly that they knew, or did they miss something?
Even those times where they are, one, disclosing them, or two, waiving inspections, I'm thinking just out loud, and I'm going, well, again, what's the right thing to do when you're selling a house to a young first-time home buyer with a young couple or a young child?
Allow them.
Yeah,
inspection.
and those three things are probably the largest three things for health and safety, outside of like structural integrity. But at the end of the day, are you going to buy the house if the house is falling down? Probably not.
Yeah, and you visually should be able to see that.
And that's something that should be disclosed if they know about it, and they should be solving those problems. I digress. Radon is $1,000. Arsenic, if it's an RO tap, it's going to be $300 to $600 depending on what you choose. And then mold can be anywhere. We've seen mold be anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000. The average is probably somewhere between 1 and 3.
Yeah.
So all of those things are very solvable things. And even the mold being a little bit more expensive, it's more about solving the reason there's moisture, bad insulation, or not proper ventilation. Those are all very easily a few $100. And then the cost is going to be in the actual remediation services depending on accessibility and location. But again, to me, I'm trying to solve those things.
Yeah.
At least how we are, for the liability, for the peace of mind, so on and so forth, and just doing the right thing. Because at the end of the day, past 2 years, sellers, you're getting top dollar.
Yeah.
By a lot.
You won the lotto.
You won the lotto, and you're selling your house for $500,000, and you're getting $545, so $5K out of pocket just to make sure that everything is a good, clean bill of health. To me, that's a no-brainer.
Well, when I sell a home, and there's a no inspection on the table, I don't necessarily encourage that, because I figure, well, I do pre-inspections is one thing, so I do know the condition of the home, and we've been proactive in fixing anything. I do provide the buyer with a copy of the report and the water test results. I don't want them to hang their hat on that. I still encourage an inspection. And I tell the sellers, you want to know what you're selling, and the buyer wants to know what they're buying, because nothing's worse than a buyer getting in, then doing an inspection, then they're angry with everybody.
Yeah, it's setting the tone for the rest of the transaction, and that's the toughest part is, if we're arguing about a few $1,000 or $3,000 to remediate mold in the big picture of $500,000, what are we talking about? But it's the tone at which you come to terms on. So, and that's the difference between getting to the closing table and wanting your sellers and buyers to be in the same room versus not at all.
Right.
But again, that's, I think, the biggest tone that you set is pre-inspection, being proactive, and 2, being forthright and honest with what we're facing. And I'll give you an example. We were dealing with a house recently, helping out the buyers, and they were out of contract due to an inspection, and then they remediated those issues. And I said, well, what are the issues? Can we see those things? Well, we'll give them one once there's an offer on the table. And then my people said, well, if that's the way that they're going to play ball, we don't necessarily want to go down that path.
Right.
All right, see you later. Where versus, I think that if you have those problems and solutions, I'm shouting it from the mountaintop, saying, hey, we got these things solved. We're good.
Yeah.
So let's come buy this house. So.
Well, and we did have somebody with buyer's remorse. They just one of your clients, remember, and a year later they said, hey, we would like to, sell the property. We just made the wrong choice.
Yeah.
But the beauty is because the market, I think that was in 2021, 2022, we were able to sell it. He broke even and then went to buy the other house that worked for him.
Yes, and this house was, the 10 to 15 year plan versus the other one was temporarily. And I think that, and this is the first point, and you started down, is nothing causes buyer's remorse more often and more quickly than rushing into a very expensive purchase, period. And I think that there was just a little bit of sense of urgency because they were moving out of apartments, so on and so forth. And it was like after a year, pump the brakes. Does this house actually fit our needs? So to your point, but also that's why they called us back, is to be proactive and problem solve to get them out from this house as cost effective as possible and into a home that fits their needs, for the future. And that, like you said, they broke even, they found a house that's going to be better for them for the next 10 to 15 years.
Right.
It's a win-win. There was another opportunity where we had not buyer's remorse, but it was a little bit more trickier. So the reason I bring it up is we've been very lucky in the past 3 years to not have to deal with buyer's remorse. And there's a few ways that we do that, and we'll talk about on the next page, but I really think that we drive home the education portion of things. And it's not just education with how to buy a house, but it's how you're maintaining this home. It's deferred maintenance. It's consistent maintenance. It's
taxes.
It's taxes. It's insurance. It's getting them to understand all of the aspects of buying a house. So, and that's the buyer's remorse that we're mitigating by doing those things is not understanding the full cost of what it means to be a homeowner, because I think that's the biggest thing. And we just put out a short form video the other day about the biggest factor to buying a house financially can be taxes. If that home has not been sold in 20 years and the last assessed value, depending on township and county, is, a quarter of what the sales price is going to be, you're going to have a rude awakening for what taxes are going to go up to.
Well, because you've got your taxable value, you've got your SEV value. It's uncapped, so the taxable value goes up to the SEV. It could be double.
It could be double.
So you got to know that information and put that in the formula. They're going to purchase it on the current taxes, but it'll be adjusted once it's reassessed by the municipality.
And surround yourself with professionals, because that's another thing that those lenders are doing, or maybe not every lender is doing, is educating really on taxes. So I know our preferred lender is really making sure he's conservative for the expected taxes for certain price points within certain buyers that are on that cusp of affordability. So surround yourself with professionals. And back to originally what I was talking about is, we've never really had anybody back out because they felt like they were in over their head financially or purchasing a home. You do get opportunities where people back out through inspection, and that's the best time to back out. But then there's time that people go through inspection, they ask their asks, they get their asks, we agree on the asks, and then they move through, and at the 11th hour they go, oh crap, I don't want to buy this house. We've had that one time probably in 20 years, or 5 times in 20 years, or whatever that number looks like. But the reason we mitigate that so much, and we might not be the statistic, is education, education, education.
And education and laying everything out of the table. This is option one, and this is how this would play out. Option two, this is how it's going to play out. And you make the decision, but you have to live with that decision. And I don't ever like somebody coming back and saying, well, I didn't know, I didn't this, and I'm going, no, you made a decision. You're an adult.
Well, that's the worst. That's like the worst nightmare for a real estate agent. And again, why we kind of hit home this education stuff is we never want somebody to wake up and go, well, you never said. So we make sure that, we're talking about every single point when it comes to buying a house, and good, bad, and the uglies for all situations, just so they have all the information and they're asking the right questions. And it's never a situation where they go, well, you never told me that. So I always, for first-time home buyers, for anybody, I'm just regurgitating information from, past and current clients. So we cover all those bases, because buying a house is not offer, price, close. There's a lot of things in between there, and then those might be the other buyer remorse opportunities where people don't feel like they have all the information. So, giving them all the information within that first due diligence period is a necessity, so we don't have a, well, you never told me, or this is news to me. Mitigating that as much as possible is kind of what we aim to do, I would think.
Well, and remember, we have to repeat it about 5 times for it to be absorbed. And if we're doing something that we're not knowledgeable or educated about, it's really easy to not recall what that is going on there. And let me give you an example. Well, surgery. I just had hip surgery. I don't know nothing about hip surgery. But he told me about something that I forgot. And I go, oh, I don't remember that. So it just reminds me that we've got to repeat it, about 5 different times.
Another thing that we were just talking about too is you might see, especially when people were doing some crazy things to get houses under contract, we got a lot of people after the fact of winning a home, we've won the home, and now all of a sudden they're looking at us saying, well, what were the other offers? So, and again, making sure a first-time homebuyer specifically understands it's not black and white, it's not offer, price, qualification. There's loan types, there's the inspection contingencies or not, there's, the appraisal guarantees, escalation clauses, and then there's also relationships. How many homes do we win based on a relationship to relationship between agents? More times than not, it's because they understand what it means to work with an agent like us, honest, integrity, so on and so forth. But, making buyers understand that it's not so black and white, there's a bunch of factors, that mitigates that initial buyer remorse of, oh crap, what did I do? Because they're so worried about going over. They're so worried about, the above and beyond. They have to be comfortable with those things. Yeah. But the times that we have won, it's always been, well, guys, it's not about, we might be the same price as the other ones. We might have marginally just won, but there were other things that they liked in our offer that the other offers didn't include. And it could be relationship, it could be lenders, it could be price points, it could be RD versus conventional. It could be a lot of consideration and factors. So really getting them to understand that, hey, it's if you're comfortable with that offer financially, that's all that matters. Yeah. We won.
Yeah. We want, and everybody likes to make sure they didn't overpay. But what has happened in this past market, and of course it's switching now, is that they've done it a few times. So it's getting comfortable, and they're real conservative at first. They lost out. They make some adjustments. This next one, they lost out. Here, they know how to play the game and know what it's going to take, and then they listen. And the first time somebody puts an offer in and they've seen the house for a half hour, and you say, well, you got this price is recommended, an appraisal guarantee, escalation clause, and then we have a short window for inspection, yada yada, conventional 20% down, if they could do that.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's just what best they can do. Put your best foot forward.
Yeah. To your point, we've dealt with one over the past 3 years for a true buyer remorse situation. This was after the fact, a year of the closing, and we were still able to be in a healthy market to get him into another home. Right. But the amount of times that we get buyers at the closing table go, zero regrets. We're happy with this home, but we wish we would have listened to you a year ago.
Right.
But that's the point of those repetitions is it might not click on the first offer. It might click on the 8th or the 10th. And the amount of times that buyers look at us and go, we wish we took your advice 10 offers ago. We would have got a better home, a bigger home, a better interest rate, a better location, so on and so forth.
Right.
And then even too, buyers that are being educated by parents, in-laws, cousins, siblings, sisters, whatever, that have never bought or sold a home recently or built a home back in the 90s, they'll then turn around and look at us and go, all right, I'm done. I need to listen to you. What do we need to do to get the deal done?
Right.
Done. And then we're able to, and that's more times than not, and I would probably even guess to say 9 times out of 10, we can tell you exactly what you need to do to get the deal done. It's whether you decide that you want to do that or not. That's the only question. Are you comfortable with making that decision to put that offer together to then get the deal done?
Yeah.
That's up to you.
Yep, for sure. In the last 23 years, very rarely do I have, a buyer's remorse situation. We will find sometimes where we see it is during the inspection.
Yep.
That's really where it comes out.
And the toughest part about inspections right now is the waiving inspections, which again, knock on wood, over the past 3 years, we have not waived inspection once.
Right.
Great on that. But then sellers willing to have a conversation about some of these issues. And I think that that's the biggest difference of maybe agents to agents is some agents might see radon, arsenic, and mold and go, we need to get out of here. Well, time out, bats in an attic, mice in an attic, radon, mold, arsenic was not invented yesterday. All day long we sell homes with all of those problems. Mm-hmm. It's whether we're deciding to compensate or mitigate those solutions before closing. That's the question.
Well, there's always going to be an issue with a house. You have a used house, it's a resale, there's something. So pick your poison.
Pick your poison.
Yeah.
What are you willing to, and that's a great point, is you're going to have some considerations to it's a used home. It's not perfect. So what are you deciding to work through either yourself or with a seller, but then also be willing to have a conversation with that seller. And sometimes agents say, we've also been conditioned to not be able to have a conversation, but what's the harm in trying to have a conversation? Because I see that as like the right and wrong thing within real estate to really transition your home to a new buyer with a great bill of health. Mm-hmm. To me, that's peace of mind. That's, what was the word you used? A liability.
Yeah, it's a liability if you, you should be sort of proud of the fact that you're selling your home and it's in good condition and visually we see all great things. So you shouldn't be afraid of an inspection. Mm-hmm. And again, I think it keeps you, there's a lot of liability on a seller, us real estate agents, we don't want to get ourselves into that.
No, yep. Let's walk through some of these major roles in reassuring clients that made, and again, this is the educational a portion of how we educate clients to make better informed, competent decisions. We do these things without even thinking about these things. Yeah. And we talked about it already, but helping a buyer on the true cost of owning a home, taxes, mortgage payments, living expenses, etc., every single thing financially. And we're talking about lawn care. We're talking about, window washing. We're talking about roof cleaning. We're talking about gutter cleaning, utilities. All of these things that you really need to take into consideration when buying a house, because it's not just principal and interest. It's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. It's, monthly maintenance costs. It's annual costs. It's annual maintenance.
Homeowners Association.
HOAs, yeah. And I always say deferred maintenance is not hard. Mm-hmm. Deferred maintenance is hard when somebody's not doing it. Yeah. And those are the things that are overlooked by buyers and sellers or homeowners in general, because one, out of sight, out of mind, or maybe it's not a cost they want to put on. But that's the difference between maximizing the sale of your home when you go to sell your house is keeping that list of problems as short as possible so we have no issues. And I think the majority of sellers want to keep that list as short as possible. Every once in a while you come across the homes where there's a great amount of deferred maintenance, but it's working through those things too, because again, we can catch up. Are they willing to do the right things to catch up, to maximize top dollar? That's up to you as a seller. Mm-hmm. So the next point, pointing out that homes this was a big thing for the buzz of the market. guys, are we buying this house for the 10 or 15 years or the 3 or 5 years?
Right.
That's my threshold of how much I'm willing to, quote unquote, overpay. If we appraise, it's a non-issue, but if we don't appraise, are you willing to overpay by $10,000? For the most part, homes always continue to rise in value, and there might be some correction and back up, but if you're in this home for, and a lot of people are still doing it, if you survived 2008, 2009, 2010, and you didn't have to sell and you built your home in 2002, now they're way over that value of 2008. It just took time.
Right.
So keeping them reassured that, yeah, we might be overpaying, but over a 10-year span, what's that $10,000 mean to you?
Compared to what? And then I always say, look, we bought it at this price, and there's these things that you can do over a period of time that's going to help appreciate in value based on the market conditions.
Yeah, so what can you do to make a few bucks and to maybe mitigate that short term, but then obviously it pans out long term. This is a pretty basic one, but focusing on the positives versus the negatives. Obviously, it's and to help them not stress about those uncertainties. A lot of buyers, at least first-time home buyers, like to talk in speculation. What if? Well, time out. Let's just get the facts from a professional, not an agent, not an inspector, but a professional that deals with mold, radon, arsenic, or a roof or whatever, and get those facts. And then at that point in time, let's have a conversation with the sellers if possible. Are we willing to take that on ourselves? So on and so forth, but focus on the facts and focus on the positives of what it means to be a homeowner is the best thing to do.
Well, and you want them to enjoy the journey. That's why it's got to be positive.
Got to be positive. Even the amount of times that I tell buyers at the end of this, we want you to be friends with us. So if we're not educating, if we're not helping them enjoy the journey or doing our job, then they're probably not going to want to call us back in the next few years. But that's the difference between doing business for 3 to 5 years and 25 plus years. And the other agents on the other side that have quality businesses that have been doing this for 25 plus years. Last point was telling them worst case scenario. This is huge on education. It's not about speculation, but it's about talking about past and current transactions to give them a best idea of worst and best case scenario, but to make good decisions moving forward, because at the end of the day, they need to make those decisions. There's a lot of agents, I would think, that are just telling people what to do versus where we're educating and consulting and saying, hey, you got a few options. Yeah. These are your options. What do you want to do?
Well, you never want to tell anybody what to do because then it's going to bite you.
Yep.
So,
you told me.
Yeah.
You told me.
And again, it's telling them what their options are and choices and let them make that educated adult decision. And, well, you told me, no, and I said, I'm not a carpenter, I'm not an HVAC guy, so I can't tell you anything.
Yeah, and that's the toughest part sometimes with this market, especially when it's so fast-paced, but I think you said it recently, is you got to drive that point home a few times, maybe 3 to 5 times drive that point home so they really understand it. Because again, at the end of transactions, we want people to fully understand how they got here versus just hold my hand, hold on, and shut up. And that to me is going to breed more problems than it is transactions. And then you're dealing with, do you want a short-term problem or a long-term problem? Our long-term problem, I don't know what that looks like, but our short-term problem is them not understanding fully. And then that turns into a long-term problem versus maybe short-term, we are focusing on the actual problems and the facts and getting through those things so they're educated and confident. So then we don't have any long-term problems. So the long-term problem is them calling you back up and saying, well, you said it wasn't going to be a problem.
Well, the nice thing is that those days are behind us right now, and we're evolving into more of a balanced market where buyers have more ability to negotiate. Remember, any repairs, they have the ability to ask for concessions. They have the ability to say, hey, can you buy down my interest rate? So there's a lot more options out there for buyers, so I don't anticipate seeing that again in the future. Anytime soon. Yeah,
and these, over the past 2 years, and hopefully we are on the other side of these things, but over the past 2 years, they said that 30% of home buyers were mostly concerned about unplanned expenses. Huge point of education. They need to understand every single thing, and we're doing that stuff. So make sure that your agent is also doing those things. Time out. talk me through taxes. Time out. Talk me through home maintenance. Time out. Can I talk to an HVAC professional? Can I get a quote on a roof? The answer is yes to all those
Send
things.
them all in the direction.
Yeah.
I mean, and really, I say go down and talk to the municipality, the townships. Understand taxes. In theory, people used to think it's half your taxable value would be 50% of your what you paid for the house. That's not accurate information. There's a lot of things that come into play when they come up with that assessed value.
That conversation with the municipality is only going to walk away with an education. A lot of people are scared about talking to the townships and the counties. Talk to them.
Understand millage rates.
You got to understand those things, because if you don't understand those things, it's only going to be a problem down the road. You're going to have to learn it eventually about how you're being taxed. And again, knowledge is power. So I have never told someone to go talk to a municipality and then come back to me and go, wow, that was a horrible phone call. It's always been a good learning experience. 49% of millennial home buyers who purchased their home were sight unseen. Not the statistic for us, but that's crazy over the past few years. Almost 50% of millennial home buyers purchased sight unseen. And then, 40% of new home buyers said waiving inspections or finding unexpected repairs was their biggest regret after purchase.
Wow.
So again, education.
Huge.
40%.
That's a big number.
And we're dealing with one buyer remorse, and it was more or less the home didn't fit their needs. It wasn't about costs. It wasn't about, repairs. It wasn't about lack of inspections. It was about, hey, this just wasn't the house for us. So the fact that we're not even 40%
That's a lot.
of home buyers said waiving inspection and or finding unexpected repairs was their biggest regret after purchasing. 35% of home buyers admitted they wish they knew home maintenance and repair costs before purchasing. So again, that's a large portion of home buyers that are not being educated on what it actually entails to be an agent. So, and we probably have to wrap this thing up.
Okay.
So 27 minutes. I think the biggest takeaways are educating buyers not necessarily is just A and B. To an offer, there's a lot of consideration factors to mitigate front-end remorse. And the difference between buying or winning and losing, if it's a few $1,000s in the big picture, it shouldn't be that big of an issue. Or I would think it should be an issue if this home is going to fit your needs for 10 years. Don't waive inspection, because these stats right here, the 40% of home buyers that said they regret waiving inspection, that's a long-term problem that's going to come to bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, waiving inspection is solving a short-term problem, but creating you a long-term problem in the future for not getting that phone call back. And we want those phone call backs.
Well, and I just never, you don't push buyers, you don't push people. I never like them to bite off more than chew. I don't want them to be mortgage poor, repair poor, or anything, because I wouldn't like that for any of my children.
Yeah. And agents, and it's not about agents, you're doing something wrong, but you only know what you know. Pat's been doing this for 23 plus years. So at the end of the day, these conversations and now the conversations that I'm having, it's not about this home. Every single home is going to have its different issues, but making sure that buyers understand worst case scenario and some opportunities that they're just making those confident, informed decisions. That's all that matters. Are we going to face that problem? I have no idea. If we do, we're prepared, and you need to understand it fully. So it's really getting them to understand, worst, but hope for the best and plan for the worst type situation. So, what other points? So education. What we see is more or less buyers regretting not listening to us sooner.
Right, because we're faced with different things now.
But be a source of information and educate, and trust works both ways. And I think at the end of the day, those reps with making offers builds that trust.
Yep.
And then ultimately, it's whether those buyers decide to make that decision or not.
Yep.
And that's up to them.
Yep.
So, perfect. Right on time, 29 minutes. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Beyond the Keys, the Pat Lotz podcast. It's Chris Lotz.
Pat Lotz.
And as always, there's lots to love in Livingston County.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to use those like, comment, and share buttons below. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Pat Lotz Real Estate for more helpful home buying and selling tips. Want a free comparable market analysis? Scan that QR code on your screen or visit our website at www.patlotz.com and fill out the request form. There's lots to love in Livingston County.